just a short distance away. Apparently, the two of them must outrun the monsters that will pour out of it and reach the final destination. Jay Hyun, however, retorts that he doesn't believe for a second that it's that simple. In response, Bruin compliments his sharp intellect. Bruin finally explains that this particular game of tag spawns monsters according to the number of challengers and their relative strength. Jun immediately grasps the severity of the situation. If his own skills are taken into account, they'll face monsters far stronger than before, a test far beyond any final exam at a magic academy. It would be a monumental task to fight and protect Seo simultaneously. When Bruin conducts an appraisal of their abilities, he congratulates them, as they've both been assessed as S rank. Bruin marvels, admitting he's never encountered participants of such a high rank, and says he's thoroughly impressed, but Jay Hyun protests that this makes absolutely no sense. However, Bruin merely wishes them good luck before transforming into pure fire. The Norner system then informs Jun that he has received the quest titled Last Festival, where he must escape from Surtur, the fire monster, and reach the final destination or, alternatively, defeat the beast. The theme quest, Last Festival, has a difficulty of S+ rank, and the reward is the Alfie's Thunderps. Failure conditions include being killed by Surtur, but the system also states that there are 3 enemies to defeat. It appears there's a hidden quest to not only kill Surtur but also to get rid of the potential threat, which comes with an undecided reward, possibly something called Unbelievable Performance. Jay Hyun is stunned to learn there are 3 of them, immediately sensing that something is terribly wrong. As they watch, another monstrous figure of fire emerges from the gate Bruin had indicated. Surtur is a being whose very purpose was to engulf the entire world in flames, even before the first giant, Ymir, was ever born. The sword of fire in his hand is said to be so intensely hot it could burn the world to ash within a matter of hours. Jay Hyun instantly breaks into a run, dragging Seo along with him as Surtur begins to incinerate everything nearby, raining brimstone across the entire area. Seo, who is now crying, asks in terror how they are supposed to escape from that monstrosity. But our hero tells her he's thinking and advises her to be quiet and run if she wants to live. Fire continues to rain down upon their position, beginning to engulf the surrounding buildings. Meanwhile, another entity, in the form of a cat, tells someone named Hell that she believes this is all her fault. She wonders aloud if Hell teasingly called her cruel, knowing she had absolutely no intention of helping them. Hell ultimately told her to let them be, eager to witness how Jay Hyun would survive this predicament. Down on the parade ground, Surtur continued to rain fire upon the earth as Jay Hyun desperately scrambled to escape. He knew it was far too dangerous to fight the monster head-on, so his only option was to evade and find the objective. Seo quickly alerted him the moment she located their destination. Hearing this, our boy rushed toward her, telling her to hold on just a bit longer as he activated a skill from his time at the Magic Academy, Haste. The ability dramatically increased his speed, sending him dashing toward the final destination. His strategy was to become a distraction for the monster and allow Seo to reach the goal. Meanwhile, Surtur roared, demanding to know which fool had summoned him, and unleashed an even more frenzied barrage of fire. The attack nearly vaporized 2 other players, who dodged it by the skin of their teeth. Jay Hyun cursed under his breath, then instructed Seo to stay sharp and listen closely to his plan. He told her they would split up. She was to run directly for the merry-go-round without stopping. Seo asked if he intended to be the distraction, prompting him to sarcastically ask if she'd rather be used as bait instead. He then simply urged her to run. As she bolted towards the final destination, Jay Hyun came to a halt, face to face with Surtur, and taunted him, calling the beast a bastard. The monster glared down, blasting him with fire, but our boy nimbly leaped out of the way. He landed on the pinnacle of a nearby tower and mocked Surtur, asking how it could ever catch him when it was so agonizingly slow. Seething with rage, the monster's mouth glowed before it smashed the entire building. Jay Hyun was standing on with a single strike, but he had already vaulted to safety. Meanwhile, Seo had almost reached the destination. But just before she arrived, Surtur sent a column of fire down, completely obliterating it. She was forced to a screeching halt, completely baffled as to what was happening, a sentiment Jay Hyun shared. Before long, a system announcement appeared, stating that the goal had been destroyed. As a result, the quest's clear condition, apart from the hidden quest, was now officially impossible. At that moment, Surtur sneered at Jay Hyun, calling him an ignorant fool for daring to believe he was a worthy opponent. Our hero realized the only way out was to kill Surtur, so he stood his ground. The next time the beast launched a ball of fire at him, Jay Hyun effortlessly deflected it without even moving. Surtur commended his impressive skill, noting that only a very small number of people had ever defended against his attacks. Eventually, the monster reached for its colossal sword and swung it toward Jay Hyun, testing to see if he could block this as well. Regardless, our boy didn't flinch and prepared to block the massive blade. Nearby, Seo realized they were genuinely going to die at this rate, so she decided to use her cognition accelerant skill to desperately find anything that could help them. While Jay Hyun was defending himself against the fiery onslaught, Seo called out, informing him that she had found a weakness the giant hides. Jay Hyun immediately broke away from the battlefield to meet with her. Surtur roared in fury, demanding to know how he dared to run away. Once our boy was far enough inside a standing building to speak with Seo, she explained their new target, the water tank. Apparently, a massive tank was located on the outskirts of Neverland. If they could somehow lure the monster there, they might be able to inflict serious damage by using the water to extinguish its powerful flames. Jay Hyun agreed, realizing it might be their only chance to truly damage its core. Heart, if they can somehow manage the flames. Seo adds that this can only be a replica and not the original giant from the legends. She believes that the monster hides a weak point and would die if they were to destroy it. She explains that she will use her ability to predict Surtur's path, feeding him the information so he can lure the giant to the water tank. Soon after, Jay Hyun dashes out and sprints toward the water tank, relying completely on Seo to call out the number of steps to take and in what direction, and precisely what to do to dodge the next attack. Surtur is about to launch at him. At one point, our hero comes to a halt, prompting Surtur to mock him as a weak human, asking if he has given up on running. Jay Hyun turns back to face him and declares that he is not running. Our hero taunts that he's heard Surtur is nothing compared to the Aesir gods and is now just serving as a lowly gate guard, so he's in no position to call anyone weak. That statement clearly stings Surtur, and as the giant sputters with rage, Jay Hyun asks if he's also afraid of him, a mere human. Surtur, now blazing with incandescent fury, his eyes, calling our hero a bastard. But as Surtur unleashes a torrent of fire, an unexpected surge of water erupts towards him. It's a brilliant deception. Jay Hyun had activated his illusion skill, tricking Surtur into standing directly before the water tank instead of his actual target. The sheer volume of water engulfs the monster, momentarily extinguishing the flames that wreath its body. Without a moment's hesitation, our hero launches himself into the air, his sword brimming with mana, and strikes it deep into the monster's heart, slamming it violently to the ground. Pinned and defeated, Surtur accuses him of using a dirty trick, but Hyun coolly retorts that the method doesn't matter when he's the one left standing. The giant warns him not to get cocky, as he only fought a mere copy of his true self, and facing the original would be an entirely different nightmare. Shortly after, Surtur's form dissolves into nothingness. And so, the system announces that Jay Hyun has conquered the last mission of the Big Three, and in doing so, has cleared the hidden route. This grants him extra rewards for his unbelievable performance, along with a powerful item known as Surtur's Undying Flames. Seo, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally breathes a sigh of relief, glad the ordeal is truly over. The cat observing them notes that Jay Hyun didn't require its help after all. It finds him fascinating, admiring his relentless drive to grow stronger, but Hel interjects that Jay Hyun is ultimately nothing more than a vessel. The cat scoffs at Hel's claim, knowing full well she's the one who's always intensely curious about Jay Hyun's every move. It also agrees it's far too soon to alert the Aesir about the boy's existence. Their priority must be to help him ascend, to become powerful enough to one day slay Odin, the leader of the Aesir. Meanwhile, our hero is gifted an S-ranked item, the Thunder Steps, once worn by a human who ascended to the position of a god of light. The equipment is designed to reinforce both strength and dexterity, and it grants a skill called the Step of Light, which is also S-ranked. Jay Hyun is stunned by the incredible power of the equipment, but he soon catches an unusual expression on Seo's face. He wonders if this is another secret she hides, prompting him to use his subordination skill on her to force the truth out. She is compelled to reveal that she obtained an item called Rosva's Seal, which increases one's strength and bestows a skill called Courage, allowing the user to resist fear and gain increased dexterity. While Seo fumes about how infuriating he is for using that skill on her yet again, Jay Hyun realizes he has absolutely no interest in any of her rewards. However, her cognition accelerant skill is far more intriguing to him. He opts to delay duplicating it, seeing as he can summon her at any given moment. Shortly thereafter, Bruin materializes to congratulate them, but just as they turn to leave, he calls out to Jay Hyun, naming him the Great Adversary, the exact same title used by the gods and Hell itself. This proclamation shocks Jay Hyun, but when he pivots to demand an explanation for the name, Bruin has already vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, an anxious crowd waits for the return of those who entered the dungeon, their patience rewarded when the barrier finally shatters. As the two survivors emerge, the crowd erupts in celebration, but Sunbi Nim immediately forces his way through the throng, needing to debrief the survivors on critical matters. However, by the time he reaches the front, he finds that Jay Hyun has disappeared without a trace. To the collective shock of everyone present, Seo is left standing alone on the stage, looking like a deer in headlights as the focus of the entire crowd shifts onto her. When Kwang-hun arrives, he speculates that perhaps Jay Hyun hides his presence, a common skill if he's an assassin class. But Sunbi Nim vehemently protests, stating Agent Kim Jian had informed him that Jay Hyun is a magic user, and more specifically, a battle mage. Elsewhere, Shanun is deeply impressed upon hearing the news that Jay Hyun simply vanished after pulling off such a monumental feat. Sometime later, our protagonist is relieved to find no online articles chronicling his actions. He deduces that the Lotus Guild must have pulled some strings to keep the incident under wraps. His incredible escape from the crowd on the scene was made possible by using Thialfi's Thunder Steps, a skill that boosted his speed to ridiculous levels. Another reward he acquired from the mission is Surtur's Undying Flames, a single-use item capable of imbuing a weapon with a powerful flame attribute. Nevertheless, Jay Hyun reflects on the incident with Surtur, realizing it only serves as a harsh reminder that he is still weak. He no longer wants to rely on cheap tricks to best his opponents or to only achieve victory when he has someone fighting by his side. He desires to become someone so formidable that others would fear to even approach him, and he is determined to cast off his weak past to protect his friends and family, so he vows to become overwhelmingly stronger. Meanwhile, Chairman Ja fully commits to her mission of reporting every single detail about Jay Hyun to instructor Jong Yu, assuring the chairman that she will not disappoint him. After she departs, Jian contemplates just how excited he is for the upcoming event at the Magic Academy, where he fully intends to dispose of all the filth standing in his way. On the ground, he has littered pictures of several students, each of their faces viciously crossed out with a red X. The next morning, Jay Hyun finally explains to the ladies why he was completely out of contact the previous day. Yoo Jun had assumed he was deliberately ignoring her calls and messages, but our protagonist clarifies that wasn't the case at all. Ina, on the other hand, worriedly asks if he was hurt anywhere, and he quickly reassures her that he's fine. Yoo Jung comments that he must have terrible luck to get caught up in such messes, even wondering aloud if the gods hate him. Suddenly, Soo-yuk strides up to their group and remarks that he spotted our hero's annoying face. He warns Jay Hyun not to try and play any of his stupid tricks on him this time. But when Yoo Jung asks our hero if he recognizes the strange newcomer, Jay Hyun flatly tells her he doesn't know the guy. Enraged, Soo-yuk screams at them that he is Lee Soo-yuk, but Instructor Yu orders him to keep his voice down, giving him no choice but to back down. As Instructor Yu steps onto the podium, she introduces herself to the cadets of the Magic Academy and informs them that she'll be teaching them the first part of understanding magic calculations. She asks that they all do their absolute best because she plans to teach them everything she knows, but Jae Hyun can't help but notice she's quite young to be an instructor. Just then, Yizu asks them how much. When asked about the nature of magic, Soo-huk explains that it's the art of using precise calculations to channel mana and create supernatural phenomena. The instructor nods in agreement, and Soo-hyuk can't resist a smug smirk in Jae-hun's direction, gloating over his correct answer. Following the discussion, Instructor Yu distributes textbooks filled with basic calculation formulas for dank magic, which are the very foundations. For higher-level applications, the main focus of their studies this semester at the Magic Academy. As she passes the books around, the students begin to complain, lamenting that the pages are completely blank. But Jae-hun sees something else entirely. When Yu calls on him, he calmly states that the text is written in runes, a revelation that clearly irritates Soo-hyuk. It's not just Soo-hyuk who's affected. Instructor Yu is visibly unsettled by Jae-hun's answer, because this is no ordinary textbook. The book hides its contents behind a magical barrier, and its text can only be revealed by solving the intricate calculations within. Normally, it takes new students a full week to decipher it, yet he solved it with a single glance. She realizes the true talent he hides is far greater than the chairman described. Intrigued, she probes further, asking if he understands the meaning of the rune emblazoned on the book's cover. Meanwhile, Jun himself doesn't understand how he can read it so effortlessly, wondering if it's the Nora system or something more profound. Could it be the fate of the Acer? Pushing the thought aside, he answers her question. The cover reads, Odin's life and the basics of runes. Back in her apartment, Sio's fuming. That scoundrel Jae-hun made her walk so much that her legs are absolutely killing her. Not only are her legs aching, but she's also furious that she was left to handle all the journalists' questions about the theme dungeon's interior. She had to explain the entire incident by herself because before Jae-hun left, he had used his subordination skill to lock away her ability to speak about him. The memory alone makes her blood boil with rage, and she desperately wonders when he'll finally release her from this infuriating subordination. Then, a thought strikes her. She can just go find him herself. A wicked little smile spreads across her face as a mischievous idea begins to form. A short time later, we find our protagonist engrossed in the book from Instructor Yu, finding it far more captivating than he initially anticipated. He discovers that every calculation formula can alter its very nature based on its application, a fundamental principle of magic. This profound understanding of the basics grants him access to a wider array of low-rank spells and will undoubtedly accelerate his journey to higher levels. As he's studying, he notices Yoo Jun slump over in exhaustion and commends her for finally succeeding in reading the book's cover. She sighs, frustrated that she, the one who first taught Jae-hun about magic, is now falling behind. Our hero just chuckles, quipping that sometimes the student must surpass the teacher. Nearby, Ina lets out a cheer of triumph, having finally managed to read the first page. Jae-hun praises her diligence, and his kind words bring a deep blush to her cheeks, causing her to quickly hide her face behind the book. He can't help but notice Ina has been treating him differently, wondering if it stems from the boundary he set between them that day. Just outside the library, one of Odin's crows observes the students of the Magic Academy before taking flight to report back to its master. Later on, Jang announces a naming competition for his new potion shop, offering a full box of his finest potions as the grand prize. Hoyen, Ina, Yu Jung, Jang, and Jae-hun all gather around a table to brainstorm, but they quickly discover that coming up with a good name is much harder than it seems. Ina suggests it might be because there are so few potion shops to draw inspiration from. Yu Jung voices her concern about the shop struggling to attract customers, but Jang simply explains that in their world, survival is the most important thing, is the most crucial thing to a raider. Making a potion business is surefire success. He prompts them to recall their own experience when they first tried the potions, declaring the formula to be absolutely revolutionary. Just a few days prior, our protagonist had been contemplating how a raider would stop at nothing to grow stronger. However, he knew that to gain power, money was far more important than mere effort. As someone who had returned from the future, Jae Hyun saw countless opportunities in business and investments laid out before him, all thanks to his foreknowledge of what was to come. In the present, he aims to bring Jang to his side, knowing he's destined to control half of the entire world's potion market in the future. Abruptly, Seo storms into the room where they are holding their meeting, immediately berating Jay Hyun for not upholding his end of a promise. He was puzzled as to how she found him, but then it dawned on him. He recalled the system's rule that a user and their subordinate can always locate each other, an effect which could not be turned off. Yoo-jun asks Jay Hyun why he would resort to pressuring a kid like that, but Jun simply tells Seo to have a seat so he can make use of her creative mind. A few minutes pass, and Seo suggests the name Heavenly Demon Potion, but our hero forcefully silences her with his subordination skill, thinking her idea was complete nonsense. Others offered their own suggestions, but Jay Hyun disliked all of them, believing that even the monsters lurking in dungeons could come up with better names. Finally, Yoo-jung becomes annoyed because Jay Hyun completely skipped over asking her for any ideas. He hadn't asked because he assumed her ideas would be just as bad, but he ultimately decides to give her a chance. She proposes the name Workshop Elixir, and our protagonist remembers that the word elixir is another name for the Philosopher's Stone, which is fabled to resurrect the dead and heal any injury. Jang absolutely loves the idea, and Jay Hyun, for the very first time, sincerely thanks Yoo-jung for saving them from their creative rut. Sometime later, in one of Instructor Yizu's classes at the Magic Academy, Jay Hyun answers a question regarding runes being the language and very foundation of magic. He answers it with absolute perfection, which only irritates Suyuk even more. After the class is dismissed, our protagonist approaches Instructor Yizu with a question he had about a certain text he was reading. When she sees the book he is holding, she grows tense, as it's a 4-star rank magic tome that even most of the instructors have difficulty reading. At this point, she truly wonders what kind of being Jay Hyun is. Later, our hero makes his way to the library, and he soon admits that he's hit a dead end with the book, having also failed to get any real answers from Instructor Yizu. However, he is completely unaware that the librarian, who sits nearby, hides her true purpose as she secretly takes notes about him, particularly the fact that he is studying a 4-star rank magic text. After leaving the library, Jae Hyun goes to his teacher, Syeongan, hoping she can help him understand the 4-star magic text. He explains that creation is for making new magic, destruction is for negating and removing magic, and amplification is for reinforcing magic. Unfortunately, the complex calculation formulas and theories are at a level too high for him to comprehend on his own. Up to this point, he had relied on his Odin's Eye to understand the texts, but now he must achieve a much deeper level of comprehension. When he's finished explaining, Syeongan replies that even she can't give him a direct answer. When he asks why, she explains that he needs to master the concepts within 4-star magic texts by himself in order to ascend to the level of an A-rank raider. Noticing his persistent confusion, she relents slightly and decides to at least point him toward a discipline that will help him learn: amplification. She materializes a sash in her hand, offering it to him, and Jae Hyun is ecstatic, knowing this will help him grow stronger. Sometime later, our boy returns to the AR battle system room at the Magic Academy, ready to battle the monsters with the sash his teacher had given him now tied securely around his wrist. He looks utterly drained, but he still activates his magic arrow skill. He fires a volley at the monsters, but they effortlessly deflect the projectiles with their swords. Shan had instructed him to repeatedly use a single magic skill while equipped with the item she provided. The item is called Jipanair, a powerful rank B artifact. It is a string that once sealed Fenrir, an imitation modeled after the legendary Gipnir that temporarily decreases all of a user's stats by a staggering 50% when tied around them. His teacher had been clear: focus on just one skill and analyze its magic formulas relentlessly. When Jae Hyun had questioned what this had to do with learning amplification, she simply told him that it was a puzzle for him to solve. Back in the present, Jae Hyun feels his entire body is heavy and slow due to his diminished stats, a sensation far worse than he could have ever imagined. Some days later, Yoo-jun notices the deep, dark circles under our hero's eyes and asks him if he's alright. After his unconvincing reassurance, she informs him that she could detect him from 100 meters away just from the smell of his pain relief patches, pointing out that he's been practically living in the AR test room for an entire week now. Ina, her face etched with concern, adds that it's not good for him to push himself to the breaking point. He thanks Yoo-jung for her concern, but deflects by reminding them of the quiz in 2 days, mentioning he heard they're not done decoding the book and might have to take extra classes if they fail. Upon hearing that, the girls scramble off to hit the books. Eventually, our boy descends into the AR battle system room for yet another session, where he finally and flawlessly clears test level 41. The Norner system notifies him that his understanding of the formula has greatly increased, and his magic arrow's efficiency has been boosted dramatically, causing the magic arrow skill to level up to level 2. At that moment, Jae Hyun understands that amplification, as described in the 4-star magic text, means leveling up a skill by mastering its proficiency and fundamentally understanding the magic's core formula. He realizes his power is now on par with the highest level of a B-rank raider, or perhaps the beginner level of an A-rank raider, just as Syeongan had predicted. He recalls how they initially used each other for their own gains, but now it truly feels like a genuine student-teacher relationship. Meanwhile, Instructor Siki goes to see the chairman, who doesn't look at all pleased to see him. The chairman's cold reception is a stark reminder for Siki, who hides his desperation, that he must recover his reputation, which has hit rock bottom because of the mock dungeon fiasco. He reports to the chairman that the guild experience event preparations are now complete. The chairman asks him if there are any faults with the thing, and when Siki confirms there are no issues, a wicked smirk spreads across the chairman's face, betraying the terrible plans he has set in motion. Elsewhere, Jay Hyun ventures into the woods and calls out to a mysterious person, "Are you going to come here, or do I need to come to you?" Shortly after, a brilliant light pierces the darkness, and a strange figure resembling one of Odin's crows dives down toward our boy, but he dodges out of the way with incredible speed. As the being gets close enough, our hero lands a powerful kick that sends it tumbling into a nearby tree. Hun taunts the creature, suggesting it clearly missed the memo about the hell its colleague endured the last time one of them tried to kill him. Suddenly, our hero spots more creatures descending for an ambush, a clear sign that Chairman Jin is finally making his move. For them to have the audacity to attack him right here on the grounds of the Magic Academy, Jin must be pulling the strings. Jay Hyun instantly summons a barrage of magic arrows, declaring they've picked the wrong fight, before unleashing them upon the attackers. The volley sends the bird-like beast reeling, but a moment later, a sight unfolds that makes his blood run cold. One of those beings is none other than his own father, Xiango, who casually remarks that it has been a very long time. Consumed by a burning rage, Jay Hyun unleashes crackling lightning chains at his father, but Xiango evades the assault with contemptuous ease. Effortlessly sidestepping the magic, his father's hand rests on his sword hilt, and in a flash, a deadly sword slash hurtles towards Jay Hyun. He's clipped on his side, unable to fully dodge the impossibly fast attack. He hadn't even perceived his father drawing the blade. The sheer force of the slash carves a deep trench in the earth, an attack that would have cleaved Jay Hyun completely in half. If he hadn't moved a split second faster, it would have been over. After a tense silence, Xiango remarks that he was looking forward to their reunion. He notes with a hint of amusement, however, that his son's personality seems to have become far more aggressive. Jay Hyun coldly retorts, telling him to drop the son act, as he has never once considered him a father. Feigning surprise, Xiango muses that he must be in his rebellious phase, but Jay Hyun cuts him off, demanding he drop the charade and state his purpose. For a brief moment, Xiango's gaze intensifies as he recognizes the power of the prophecy within Jay Hyun, yet he's convinced there must be a ceiling to his potential. Eventually, he changes tactics, probing Jay Hyun about whether the resistance against the Acer has made contact with him. Jay Hyun's flicker of shock is all the confirmation Xiango needs, and he immediately launches another flurry of sword slashes to cut him down. Our hero hastily erects a magical barrier for protection, but the sheer force of the slashes shatters it instantly, scorching his clothes. Stunned, Jay Hyun questions if this is truly the overwhelming power of an A-rank raider, as his father condescendingly acknowledges he has gotten stronger. But Jay Hyun is still reeling, unable to comprehend how his father knows about the Acer, and wondering what other dangerous secrets he hides. Finally, he confronts Xiango directly, asking if his intention is to kill him, to which his father coolly replies that he has no such plans. However, Xiango internally muses that the great adversary's growth is alarmingly rapid. At this rate, he will become a major obstacle. He'll be a threat to both his own plans and to the Acer in the near future, so he resolves to use divine power to cripple the adversary's development. With that thought, he coldly informs Hun that he'll be taking his limbs, then channels immense power into his blade for a devastating strike. Jay Hyun can only watch, frozen, as the overwhelming energy rushes towards him, only for it to be inexplicably intercepted by that mysterious cat. It's the same cat he saw conversing with a being from hell. Xiango immediately questions it, asking if the pact between the Acer and the resistant Acer has been broken. Or, he demands, if it has simply decided to challenge the authority of the great Odin. The cat feigns ignorance, claiming it has no idea what he's talking about. Jay Hyun is completely baffled, trying to process how the cat just spoke, when it suddenly transforms into a humanoid female who addresses Xiango directly. She tells him to leave, stating that they have unresolved business with this child, and our hero can sense the immense mana radiating from her. It's an aura far stronger than even Xiango's, leaving him utterly lost as to what is happening, as Xiango asks if she truly intends to make things difficult. To make matters worse, she deliberately cuts her hand, letting drops of her blood fall to the ground, which immediately transform into grotesque, monstrous hands that lash out at Xiango. He parries the initial assault, but the hands only grow larger and their strikes more ferocious. Even as he defends himself, Xiango taunts the girl, remarking that Loki must have grown desperate to rely on a mere human to settle a war between the gods. The girl fires back, however, reminding him that he's also just a human attempting to kill Odin, making him no different. Ultimately, the man posing as June's father decides to retreat for now, but not without warning her that he'll make her take full responsibility for the contract with the Acer if she dares to interfere again. Unfazed, she tells him to do as he pleases, reminding him that she could just as easily take his head if he disrupts her plans. After leaving a threatening mark on his neck, she clarifies that the contract is strictly between the Aesir and the resistant Aesir, but points out there's absolutely nothing in it that forbids the slaying of one of Odin's crows. Shortly after this chilling declaration, Xiango vanishes, and our hero finally collapses to the ground, gravely wounded. The mysterious girl approaches him and says it's a pleasure to finally meet him, introducing herself as Hel's alter ego, Hela. She explains that she is to be his observer and guide through the coming 5 trials. Sometime later, our hero makes his way back to the Magic Academy to recover from his injuries. Hela informs him that he's free to ask her anything, and she will answer whatever questions she is permitted to. He immediately asks about the true identity of Siongo. She then reveals the shocking truth. That man is not his real father, and his actual name is Hugin. As it turns out, he is one of Odin's two crows, a mythical creature whose very nature hides behind deception as it controls and feeds on the human mind. Hugin had borrowed the power to manipulate memories from the other crow, Munin, and has been lurking by Jay Hyun's side, posing as his father, all to keep a close watch on the prophesied great adversary. Our protagonist is utterly stunned to learn the man who raised him isn't his real father. Seeing his disbelief, Hela decides it would be easier to simply show him. She points a single finger at him, triggering the release of his suppressed memories. In a sudden flashback, he is transported back to his childhood home. There, he witnesses his supposed father, calling him useless and cursing the very day he was born. This man despised the fact that he had awakened his powers. From the moment he unlocked his mana, his life became a nightmare filled with relentless violence and cruel words. Yet, through it all, his mother was always there, trying to shield and defend him from the man's wrath. Suddenly, back in the memory, he finds it difficult to breathe. A chilling realization dawns on him. He has forgotten something of immense importance, something he should never have let slip away. All at once, a flood of genuine memories returns warm experiences with his real father, who would sneak him sweets against his mother's wishes. He remembers the pure joy of their happy family, and tears begin to stream down his face as he gazes at a photograph of his true father. The grief overwhelms him, and he cries uncontrollably, wondering how he could have ever forgotten. As his memories are fully restored, he snaps back to the present, where Hela tells him he is finally free from the mental manipulation. With tears still welling in his eyes, he asks her why Siongo would do such a cruel thing to him. She explains it's because he was born to be the fated great adversary. The mere mention of a prophecy and his supposed destiny as this great adversary only infuriates Jay Hyun, and he demands to know what any of it means and why it's all making his life an unbearable hell. After a brief, solemn pause, Hela begins to explain how 10,000 years ago, the first Ragnarok occurred, which is where this entire tale truly began. Ragnarok, she clarifies, is the final chapter of the gods, marking the end of an era. During the cataclysmic Ragnarok, the Aesir Resistance Alliance fought valiantly in the War of Extinction, but were ultimately defeated by the Aesir gods and their Valkyrie-led army. In the aftermath, Odin permitted the captive gods and giants, who were prisoners of war, to live, but only under the terms of a binding contract. This document officially declared that the Aesir resistance had been vanquished in Ragnarok, and from that day forward, they were forbidden from ever harming the Aesir gods in any way, and were bound to serve the supreme being, Odin. The inhabitants of countless worlds suffered under the weight of this pact, their cries of despair echoing through the cosmos, until the three Norn sisters delivered a new prophecy. They foretold that in 10,000 years, upon the arrival of the second great extinction, the most unassuming being would be the one to topple Odin and Asgard, ushering in a brand new world. And the great adversary named in that prophecy is none other than Jay Hyun. Once Jay Hyun grasps that the Aesir resistance intends to use him to eliminate Odin, he demands to know what Odin's true plan is and what he truly hides from the realms. Hela reveals that Odin desires all 9 realms under his absolute control, and that includes Midgard, the home of humanity. At the same time, within the halls of Asgard, Odin finds it utterly vexing to be forced to observe some insignificant creature, all because of a single prophecy. Heimdall, ever present at his side, remarks that Jay Hyun is a mere human, a nobody who couldn't possibly measure up to their divine might. However, given that the Aesir resistance is moving with grim determination, Odin cannot afford any sign of weakness, so he grants Heimdall temporary authority to act. Upon hearing this, Heimdall is thrilled at the chance to finally leave Asgard after such a long time. A short while later, our protagonist is pushing his limits at the gym, his mind replaying Hela's words about the 9 realms. It seems Odin has already subjugated several worlds, including Vanaheim, Jotunheim, Svartalfheim, and Muspelheim, and he intends to conquer the remaining ones during the Second Great War. In a flashback, Jay Hyun questions why Odin hasn't simply disposed of him already. Hela clarifies that it's due to the formidable power of the prophecy, a force that not even the gods themselves can overpower. But she warns that while this power currently protects Jay Hyun, its protection is not absolute and will fade as the second Ragnarok draws near. She grimly explains that the Aesir gods plan to strike him down the moment that protection fails, revealing that they have already done so once before. The realization dawns on Jay Hyun. The death he suffered in his previous life was all part of Odin's grand design. They had been manipulating him from the very beginning. They took his family, twisted his memories, and turned his entire existence into a nightmare. Hela then poses the question, does he crave vengeance and the power to protect all that is precious to him? She reveals herself as the guide for the 5 great trials, a brutal kind of magic academy designed to forge him into the very weapon that will bring Odin to his knees. The Nornir system then presents a main quest titled The God Slayer's Path, which tasks him with inheriting the power of the Aesir throne to finally put a stop to Odin's tyrannical ambition. He has already conquered the trial of Hell, but 4 more trials of unknown difficulty lie ahead before he can claim the blessing of the Aesir throne. Elsewhere, Hyun pushes himself through his own special training until his body aches. This grueling regimen allowed him to acquire a coveted S-rank skill, but the physical toll is immense. He can't help but recall that Jay Hyun is already leagues ahead of him, and at this pace, he'll never be strong enough to surpass him. On the Mills Festival, he decides to dedicate himself to training, but his plans are cut short by a summons to the chairman's office of the Magic Academy. Within his office, Chairman Jin is speaking with a certain congressman about a plot to eliminate all the lower-ranking students, allowing them to focus their support solely on the high-ranking elite. Jin suggests the man handle the aftermath once they purge the students, but the man protests that he can't, as things already spiraled out of control during the mock exams, and the Raider management headquarters will soon be making their move. Jin feels the congressman is not operating on his level and briefly considers if he should eliminate him as well. He then informs the man that all preparations are complete and that they plan to artificially manifest a gate at the guild experience they're hosting in just a few days. This news immediately captures the congressman's interest, who offers to send supporting funds from the nation to Mills, just as they had discussed before. Shortly after, Hyun, still deeply scarred by the horrific experience he endured, appears. With the Demelane incident weighing on his mind, was deeply concerned about the chairman's summons, suspecting he was the one who had breached his consciousness and orchestrated the catastrophe in the mock dungeon. As he knocked on the chairman's office door, he resolved not to act recklessly, knowing he couldn't face this threat alone. Later, during class, our hero was pulled into a flashback of his conversation with Hela. In that memory, she warned him that Odin likely already knew he had made contact with the EER resistance, which meant Ragnarok could be triggered far earlier than expected. Instructor Yizu then concluded her class, asking them to wake any sleeping students, including Ina, as she had an announcement. She explained that the guild experience was set to happen in 3 days, framing it as an excellent opportunity for them to witness how Raider guilds operate and hunt monsters. She added that a particular guild was specially arranged for them by Chairman Jin. Jay Hyun detested the thought of attending a guild chosen by Jaewon, recalling a past life where he visited a new E-rank guild only to sit on a moldy couch before promptly leaving. Now, however, his current achievements gave him endless options. His plan was to join the Neptune Guild, the undisputed #1 guild in Korea, before his regression. However, Instructor Yu then read from a guild priority list, which allowed top guilds to select a student they coveted to experience their operations in exchange for a special point. Yu announced that Jay Hyun, Ina, Yu Jang, and 3 others had been chosen by the Lotus Guild, while Lee Soo-yuk was selected by the Neptune Guild. Yu Jung was utterly thrilled about the Lotus Guild's offer, and our protagonist finally understood why his teacher had asked for the names of the most skilled students. Yu Jun began to weep with joy at the thought of meeting Guild Master Yang and nearly crushed Ina in a hug, but she was forced to stop when the 3 of them received an emergency summons from Hon, telling them to convene at Jang's workshop. When the cadets gathered at the workshop, Hon revealed Chairman Jawan's sinister plot to deliberately endanger the lower-ranking students during the guild experience to force a reawakening. Jiang lamented that the chairman's corruption within this magic academy is an annual topic, but now it had escalated to him playing with people's very lives. Our hero realized the guild experience is where the chairman hides his true intentions. It was far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. Hon stated grimly that they were the only ones who knew of this plot, and therefore, the only ones who'd be able to stop it. Ji Hun, however, counters that acting rashly might just get them all eliminated, no matter how noble their intentions are to help everyone. As a tense silence settles over the table, Yu Jung finally speaks up, asking why they're even hesitating when the lives of students at their magic academy are at stake. John immediately agrees with her, as does AA. It actually brings a smile to Jae Hyun's face to see them all united, and he reflects that their passion for battle and protecting the innocent is the very essence of what makes them raiders. Just then, the system chimes in, issuing a new main quest titled The Second Turning Point, where his objective is to thwart Jihan's avaricious scheme and rescue the students, a mission with an A+ difficulty rank. The rewards for success are a blank card and a sealed magic tome, and the Norner system adds that the resistant Izir are observing him, waiting to see what choice he will make. Ultimately, Jae Hyun proposes that they formulate a plan to completely dismantle Chairman Jihan's operations for good. A short time later, Instructor Yu is left stunned when Jae Hyun reveals he has already mastered a 4-star magic tome, a feat she considers utterly impossible. A chill runs down her spine as she realizes just how dangerous this student is, and that something about him is deeply unsettling. She's aware the chairman intends to use him as a pawn, yet she's certain that Jae Hyun is not someone who can be easily manipulated. Abruptly, the young man points out that she seems quite distressed after imparting so much knowledge to him as his mentor. He then pointedly asks if she's planning to report all of this back to that scoundrel Jihan. When she demands to know how he could possibly know about her arrangement, he activates his brainwashing skill on her, calmly stating he has a favor to ask. The mental suggestion takes hold instantly, confirming Jae Hyun's suspicion that he has now far surpassed her in power. His strategy to win this conflict is to seize control from within the enemy's ranks. To that end, he compels Yu to reveal the underhanded schemes Jihan has planned for the upcoming guild experience event. 3 days later, on the day of the event itself, Yu Jung is practically buzzing with excitement at the chance to finally tour the legendary Lotus Guild headquarters. Shortly after their arrival, manager Senungjai appears to welcome the students to the Lotus Guild, announcing that he will be their guide for the day. He leads them on a tour, eventually bringing them to a chamber where the guildmaster herself is waiting to greet them. Soon, they are all seated around a table, enjoying tea and refreshments. Yu Jung is so starstruck she can barely lift her head, completely overwhelmed with awe, and she eventually musters the courage to ask the guildmaster for an autograph because she's such a huge admirer. Seun graciously signs for her, telling Yu Jung that it's passionate fans like her that give her strength. When the guildmaster remarks to Jae Hyun that he seems to have made many friends already, Hyun curiously asks if he was previously acquainted with the guildmaster. Sioena then reveals that Jay Hyun is actually her personal student, a revelation that causes Yu Jung to nearly lose her mind with shock. The guildmaster goes on to explain that she's heard a great deal about them from Jay Hyun, and that he is the very reason she invited them here today. She confides in them that the Lotus Guild, along with a few others, are already aware of Jihan's deep-seated corruption, but they haven't been able to make a move against him because of the absolute power he wields. The true extent of his abilities is something Jihan carefully hides from the world, and Sioena confesses that even she is unaware of the majority of them. At the same time, a different group of students is being toured through another guild, where one student named Sang Chan internally scoffs at his peers, considering them fools for ever underestimating him or not being as gifted as he is. In his mind, everything has changed, because the chairman himself handpicked him for this opportunity, proving he has finally been recognized his potential to become a legendary raider. Just then, a girl pulls Sion Chan aside, asking if he also senses something off about this place. When he presses for details, she points out that a proper raider guild should have extensive facilities, yet this location looks like it's been derelict for years, nothing more than an abandoned ruin. As he also glances around, spotting dusty boxes and thick cobwebs, a seed of worry begins to sprout. Just then, their guide announces that they've arrived at their destination. But as the man turns, his face begins to melt away, revealing the sinister visage of Instructor Sioki. Cursing internally, Sioki hadn't anticipated his illusion skill would fade so quickly, realizing he had no other option but to accelerate his plan. Without a moment's hesitation, he unleashes a vibrant pink magic circle that erupts beneath the students from the Magic Academy and bids them a chilling farewell. Panic explodes as the students scramble to escape, but their feet are frozen in place. Elsewhere, Jay Hyun's group uses the mana map provided by Guildmaster Shungin, tracking a powerful source of supernatural energy. However, when they arrive, they find what looks more like a decrepit ruin than a guild headquarters, making them question if they're in the correct location. Trailing behind them, Jay Hyun mentally communicates with manager Sunji, confirming that he's maintaining his pursuit. When Sunji asks how he mastered telepathy so quickly, our prodigy casually mentions that he just skimmed a few magical texts. Sunji is immensely proud of this progress, knowing full well that telepathy is far more difficult than Jay Hyun lets on. Over at the Yanhwa Guild, the guildmaster senses a foreboding wave of mana nearby. Her mind flashes back to when Jay Hyun had warned her that the guild Jian intended to use for his schemes was named Cain. Shungin recalls that this was the very guild Jian established himself, which she finds peculiar. The Cain Guild is located in the heart of Seoul, not far from Lotus, and it seems far too conspicuous for Jian, who usually hides his tracks meticulously. In response, Jay Hyun had informed her that he received this intelligence from an operative working on his behalf. Returning to the present, she asks Hana if she's investigated the guild Jian established, and Hana confirms she has. Hana reveals that the Cain Guild is, in fact, a ghost guild. These ghost guilds are shady organizations involved in tax evasion and all sorts of illicit activities, deliberately ensuring they don't record any of their operations. Upon hearing this, Shungin suspects Jay Hyun's information was accurate, though she still can't discern what Jian is plotting. To be on the safe side, she instructs Hana to prepare her gear in case the situation escalates. Meanwhile, the students enter the Cain Guild. Yu Jung expresses her doubts, noting its abandoned state, but our hero assures her that this is undeniably the place from which the decaying mana originates. The energy Jay Hyun senses feels profoundly wrong, making him consider sending the others away to face this threat alone with manager Sunji. As they cautiously advance, they detect the lingering traces of some highly advanced magic that was recently cast. While they're surveying the area, the same sinister pink energy erupts again, and Jay Hyun screams for the others to get out immediately. But before they can react, they are ensnared by the magic circle, completely immobilized. A moment later, they hear a disembodied voice mocking them as fools before summoning them to Svartalfheim, the mythical realm of the Dark Elves. As they are being transported, the Nornir system alerts Jay Hyun that the dungeon's danger level far exceeds his current capabilities, ordering him to evacuate the dungeon at once. In that very instant, the leader of the Dark Elves commands his legion to arise, for their time has finally come, to feast upon new prey. In an instant, the students are transported to Svartalfheim, and Jay Hyun recalls the legends he studied. It is said that the Dark Elves of Norse mythology possess power rivaling the gods, though their strength was diminished when this realm was transformed into a dungeon. Hoyen expresses his shock, marveling that Chairman Ja could wield such advanced teleportation magic. He finds himself questioning the chairman's true identity. June concurs, noting that a mere human shouldn't be capable of meddling with the transfer system of the Nine Realms, implying a more powerful entity is at play. The group collectively understands they are in a dire predicament. Their despair turns to shock as manager Sunja suddenly appears. Sunja explains that Jay Hyun had instructed him to intervene should anything go awry, prompting a relieved Yu Jung to exclaim that they might not perish after all. However, Sunja quickly tempers their hopes, clarifying that his presence doesn't guarantee safety, as even A-rank raiders find it a struggle to survive within the domain of the Dark Elves. He bluntly warns them that a single moment of carelessness will mean death for them all. Jay Hyun concurs with Sunja, acknowledging that no flawless strategy for this dungeon exists, at least not in this current timeline. Yet, he inwardly recalls the countless clear guides from the future, and confidently assures the group that they will all make it. out of this place alive. But first, he proposes they search for any other survivors. Elsewhere, Chairman Ja is meeting with Hohen's father, Mr. An, who voices his displeasure over the chairman's broken promise to elevate Hohen's power. Ja coolly assures him that there's no need for concern, promising that Hohen will emerge victorious in the upcoming event. Yet, Mr. An senses that the chairman hides a cunning nature, much like a serpent, and demands to know how Hohen could have possibly lost to a student from the magic class during the freshman hunt. The chairman then reveals the truth about Jay Hyun, a prodigy born with a staggering 97% aptitude for magic. This figure leaves Mr. An utterly stunned. He promptly decides to take his leave. It's revealed that Insiu was once a high-ranking military officer, and his profound connections within the central government are what make him valuable to Ja. Still, this isn't reason enough for Ja to interfere in the new event, as he refuses to engage in a game he cannot guarantee he will win. Back in the world of the Dark Elves, Ina decides to use her flash skill to illuminate their pitch-black surroundings, but Jay Hyun quickly tells her to hold on. He then unleashes a level 3 flash skill of his own, which emits a far more powerful light. Yu Jung is taken aback, so our protagonist explains that he managed to level up the flash skill from its initial D rank. Ina questions how this is even possible, as leveling a skill is something only an A-rank raider should be able to do, leaving Hohen speechless at the depth of Jay Hyun's abilities. As the group presses onward, manager Sunja contemplates our hero's unique talent for skill progression, wondering why he's never encountered such a phenomenon before. Despite having trained innumerable new raiders from the Magic Academy, he secretly marvels at just how much potential Jay Hyun hides. As they venture deeper into the dungeon's oppressive darkness, Jay Hyun suggests they take a brief rest, to which Sunja agrees, noting they have been traveling for quite some time. Knowing that dark elves are accustomed to the gloom and can easily nullify light magic, our hero extinguishes the light, allowing their eyes to acclimate to the darkness. The students then consume the mana potions that Jay Hyun had thoughtfully prepared for them in advance, replenishing their depleted mana reserves. When Hoyen speculates that the survivors must be past the upcoming fork in the path, Jun activates his mana perception to scout the dungeon's layout. He quickly detects that the central path leads directly to the boss chamber. With lightning reflexes, he detects an incoming projectile and snatches the arrow from the air, just moments before it could pierce Anna's chest. Our hero instantly activates his absolute calculation skill, as the entire group snaps into a battle stance, realizing they're completely surrounded. They are besieged by dark elves. Everyone watches in utter shock, as Jay Hyun effortlessly crushes the enchanted arrow in his bare hand. Yu Jun quickly erects a mana field to shield her friends while Ina casts a spell called Slow to impede the elves' advance. She then summons her radiant divine sword and charges into the fray. Meanwhile, Hohen activates his martial arts, Polar Extreme skill. This creates the perfect diversion, allowing the others to press their attack. Once he gives the signal, manager Sununjai leaps toward a dark elf, dagger in hand, engaging it in a fierce head-on clash. Not one to be left out, our hero decides to join in. He unleashes his lightning chain, now powered up to level 5, and strikes several of the elves with its crackling tendrils. According to the clearing tutorial, the dark elves' weaponry and armor are forged entirely from magic. This means his absolute calculation can completely dismantle them. He signals for Yu Jung and Ina to use only fire-type magic. Though confused, they trust his judgment and comply. As an elf hurls a spear directly at him, Jay Hyun gives another command. He tells Hohen to use a provocation skill to make the enemy's movements predictable, just as he incinerates the incoming spear with a burst of flame. Hohen immediately unleashes his taunt, drawing the monster's aggression toward himself, and Jay Hyun directs Sunjai to eliminate the distracted dark elves. Their movements have now become sluggish and simple. Sunjai complies, silently wondering what secret Jay Hyun knows about these creatures. Using his level 5 stealth skill, which completely hides his presence from sight and sound, Sunjai begins to carve through the dark elf ranks. Meanwhile, our hero unleashes his Fire Strike skill, landing a devastating blow that obliterates one of the elves. Yu Jung then summons her Flame of Eternity, conjuring a massive fireball that engulfs a wide area and forces the remaining elves to scatter. As the disoriented elves attempt to regroup for an assault, Ina calmly lets loose a volley of fire arrows, picking them off one by one. Just as an elf wonders how these humans discovered their fatal weakness, Hohen's blade pierces straight through its back, emerging from its chest. The creature is enraged that a mere human dares to strike it down, but as it turns to retaliate, Jay Hyun's lightning chain snakes out to deliver the final, decisive blow. Shortly thereafter, the battle is over, and Jay Hyun urges them to press onward. He informs them that they're running out of time, as he can sense the mana of survivors nearby and worries they'll perish if they're late. Back at the Magic Academy, Chairman Ja is furiously berating Instructor Seoki for yet another colossal failure. Seoki stammers an apology, trying to explain that he never anticipated an outsider would simply walk into the guild building, but the chairman is livid. He refuses to accept such a pathetic excuse. Seoki tries to assure him there's no need to worry, claiming it's common for civilians to die during sudden gate appearances and that the whole incident is something the academy hides from the public anyway, but the chairman knows that's utter nonsense. A trickle of blood suddenly escapes Seoki's mouth as the chairman coldly informs him that the transfer spell is completely ineffective on civilians who lack mana. This means some rats capable of using magic must have gone inside. Jia tells him to pray this situation resolves cleanly, because if even one of those students makes it out alive, things will end very badly for him. As the chairman's oppressive aura intensifies, blood begins to stream from Sioki's nose and eyes. Elsewhere, Guildmaster Shangin is seen making a hasty and urgent departure from the guild. She races towards the Kane Guild to investigate the foreboding mana. She suspects it's the work of at least an S-rank spell, which means the students and Sunja are in grave danger. However, her earring remains silent, a small comfort confirming no one has perished yet. As she dashes out, she instructs Hana to call the association for immediate backup if she fails to return by dawn. Speeding away on her bike, Xiangin vows she will never forgive Jia if he dares to harm a single hair on any of her people. Meanwhile, Xiong Chan is grievously wounded, and his friends struggle to support him as they try to escape. Their desperation peaks when they stumble, and the girl breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by the need to get out of this nightmare. She starts blaming herself for everything, wishing she wasn't so utterly useless, and is startled when someone suddenly rests a hand on her shoulder. It's Jay Hyun. He reassures her, saying she did an excellent job and tells her to leave the rest to his team. Shortly after, the girl collapses, and they quickly administer some restorative potions. Chan awakens to find himself in Svartalfheim, the mythical realm of the Dark Elves. When Jay Hyun presses for details, they recount falling into this place right after arriving at the Kane Guild, after which they were ambushed by Dark Elves who dragged their friends away. Miraculously, the girl and Chan manage to escape notice because the terrain hides many shadows, allowing them to slip away, but they soon collapse from severe mana poisoning. Judging by her tone, Jay Hyun suspects she views herself as a coward, wishing she'd fallen fighting beside her classmates. However, Jay Hyun sees it as pure arrogance to wish for a heroic death against an unbeatable foe. That kind of thinking is for the movies. A painful memory of abandoning his own comrades in a past life flashes through his mind. Because of this, he tells Xiong Chan and the young woman that they bear no responsibility for their friends being captured. When Jay Hyun asks for their captor's destination, the girl reveals they were taken towards the king who commands these dark elves. Jay Hyun then inquires who led them here, and Xiong Chan confirms it was Instructor C from their magic academy. After a moment, Jay Hyun tells the group to wait while he scouts ahead, but Yujin immediately protests, asking him what he's planning. Our hero explains he can sense a potent dark mana from the direction the captives were taken, which almost certainly leads to the boss. He stresses the urgency, as the life forces of the captured students are steadily fading. Yu cries out that he's insane and marching to his death, and Ina agrees they must stick together, but surprisingly, Hone sides with Jay Hyun. Our protagonist clarifies that none of them can handle these dark elves in a one-on-one fight and win. Their duty is to stay behind and protect the injured. Yu Jung starts to argue but falls silent, unable to offer a better plan. Sunja also reluctantly concedes, but pleads with Jay Hyun to return immediately if the danger is too great. Jay Hyun entrusts the others to Sunja's care, and Hone assures him that he will protect everyone with his life. As Jay Hyun ventures deeper into the dungeon that hides the enemy, Chan's friend anxiously wonders if he will be alright. Sunja, ever the pillar of support, assures her that Jay Hyun will succeed because of his immense strength. Meanwhile, Yu Jung discreetly wipes a tear from her eye, and seeing Ina's distress, she whispers that Jay Hyun will definitely be fine. In that moment, Sunja's attention is sharply drawn to something new. Sensed a hidden presence, and he motioned for the others to be quiet, whispering that an enemy was drawing near. As he reached for his dagger, a searing beam of energy erupted past his head, injuring him severely and slamming him to the ground. Suddenly, dark elves emerged from the gloom, and one of their powerful leaders pointed out that these humans had been bothering them like a swarm of flies. Meanwhile, our hero continued to push forward, knowing he had to finish his task quickly because something terrible might happen in his absence. He soon heaved open a massive door and came face to face with a king who had been expecting him and had prepared a special trial. As Jay Hyun opened his mouth to speak, his earring began to burn, and he realized the manager's presence was growing terrifyingly faint. Before he could make a move, the door thundered shut behind him, and the king declared that he could not leave this chamber unless he survived combat with his soldiers. Jay Hyun was at a critical crossroads. He had to return to save the others, but then he remembered Hoyen's promise, and he decided to put his trust in his friends while he'd handle this. The Dark Elf King begins to taunt him, asking what pathetic move he plans to make next. In response, Jay Hyun erects a towering wall of fire around himself, vowing that this place will become their tomb. Meanwhile, at the dungeon's entrance, Sanjai remains incapacitated on the ground, the very sword that struck him down lying beside him. Hoyen rushes to his aid, only to realize that the manager is in a grave state and has likely been poisoned, which means these beasts know the fatal weakness an assassin-type raider hides. The elven commander recalls his blade with a flick of his wrist and decides it's time to clean up the minions, as he calls them, now that the most troublesome opponent is out of the picture. This confirms Hoyen's suspicion that they were simply waiting for Jay Hyun to be separated from the group to launch their ambush, and Ina adds that the guildmaster must have sensed that manager Sanjai has fallen. She recalls that Seongun had entrusted Jay Hyun with an Avaldi earring, which would signal her the moment any of them were in peril, and she had sworn to intervene if an emergency arose. In the Dark Elf Palace, Jay Hyun becomes a whirlwind of pure rage and literal fire, carving a path through the ranks of dark elves. He cloaks himself in flames and confronts a group of elves. Noticing the telltale crimson stains around their mouths, he coldly informs them they are going to regurgitate what they have just consumed. Our hero recalls the look of grim determination on Hwoyun's face, the expression of a desperate man who is fully committed to a dangerous path. He's seen that very same look on his best friend from a past life and on the friends who were killed in the mock dungeon at the Magic Academy, so he knows better than to trust those eyes. Meanwhile, Yujong manifests a protective mana field, as Anna summons a barrage of divine radiant swords to unleash hell upon the Dark Elves. The leader of the Dark Elf contingent scoffs, remarking on how pitiful it is to watch them struggle so pointlessly. So, he declares that they will all become a part of the king's grand feast and commands his soldiers to charge. Anna is shocked by the elf's blinding speed, but Hwoyun manages to block the commander's strike with his shield. Hwoyun then activates his martial arts, polar extreme skill, and retaliates with a devastating slash that forces his opponent into a hasty retreat. This impressive counterattack makes the elven leader admit that the humans aren't entirely useless after all. Hwoyun realizes this group is on a completely different level than the Dark Elves they faced before, and as the leader closes in again, Hwoyun demands to know who he is. The commander of the group introduces himself as Kel, the captain of the A Royal Guard who also possesses royal blood. The revelation that he's a royal dark elf sends shockwaves through them, a status that implies power far beyond his rank, than an A ranker. At that moment, Hwoyun's mind flashes back to his first meeting with Jay Hyun, remembering the boy standing defiantly to protect him. It was a gesture that rekindled his faith in the forgotten virtues of a raider. In his eyes, Jay Hyun's fearless spirit embodied the very dream he yearned to achieve. He resolved then and there that he would not fall in this desolate place he had to catch up to. Jay Hyun, whatever the cost. In a move that stuns everyone, Hwoyun casts his shield aside and strides purposefully toward the enemy. He realizes this is the path he should have taken from the very beginning, for a true raider's power isn't confined to a single core. With intense focus, he delves into his higher, middle, and lower chi centers, forcing them open. Kel is taken aback by the explosive surge of mana erupting from Hwoyun. The sheer pressure of it is enough to cause him minor injury. His subordinate shields him as he demands to know how Hwoyun is capable of such a feat, a power few at any magic academy could ever dream of. But Hwoyun offers no reply, instead activating his unity of body and sword skill, which immediately causes him to start coughing up blood. A desperate Ina begs him to stop, as the system declares that the skills level is far too advanced for the user's current body, causing the very flow of his blood to reverse. He's warned to cancel the skill immediately, or his life will be forfeit in 6 minutes and 36 seconds. Seizing the opportunity, Kel orders his soldiers to capture Hwoyun alive, even if it means severing his limbs. Regardless, Hwoyun refuses to deactivate the skill and steels himself to confront the soldiers. He had succeeded in obtaining this S-rank skill, unity of body and sword, from his training, but it was still far too much for his body to handle. This was an art used by those who have reached the absolute peak of swordsmanship, where the blade and its wielder become a single entity. As the soldiers charge, Hwoyun effortlessly parries their attacks and moves to face Kel directly. When their swords clash, Hwoyun instantly understands he's still no match for the true power Kel hides, because he has only just awakened to this new realm of strength in a dangerously unstable manner. He realizes that his only option is to stall for time. So, he continues fighting with Kel. Amidst their duel, Kel tells him that his desperate struggle is rather comical, and he points out that he can clearly see what kind of precarious state he's in. However, Hwoyun refuses to back down, driven by a promise he is determined to keep. He tells Kel he would never understand his reasons and lunges in for a frontal strike, but the dark elf sidesteps out of the way and attempts to attack him from the flank. Yet, Kel is unable to land the blow because Hwoyun's heightened senses allow him to perceive the counterattack quickly enough to evade. Kel snarls, calling him a little rat, but Hwoyun leaps right back towards him, almost overpowering the dark elf in a burst of strength. Suddenly, as they fight, Hwoyun's body begins to break down. The system warns him to undo the skill immediately, as all muscular fibers are being disconnected, and all his blood paths are being twisted. Racked with pain, he falters, and Kel moves in to finish him off, but Hwoyun still manages to block the fatal attack. He begins to cough and gasp for air as his body finally gives out on him. Regardless, he pushes on with the skill, deciding to put everything into one last fight. From his position, he unleashes a colossal blast of mana that tears through the Aishi ground. The attack grievously injures a dark elf, but Hwoyun's face falls in disappointment when he realizes it's another subordinate that Kel had used as a human shield. The dying elf calls out to his captain as he collapses in his arms, but Kel simply tells him not to worry, simply because he had served his purpose. As Hwoyun crumples to the ground, blood spewing from his lips, he rasps that Kel is nothing but a coward. The accusation barely escapes his mouth before Kel lunges forward, driving his blade straight through him. In the distance, tears stream down Yujong's face as she witnesses the horrific scene, crying out Hwoyun's name. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Jay Hyun is laying waste to dark elf forces with his searing chains of fire. He still hasn't managed to liberate the captured students, and a wave of concern hits him when he recalls that he promised Hwoyun he only needed 10 minutes to eliminate the king and rescue everyone else. At that very moment, a dark elf lunges at him with a spear, intent on a killing blow, but our hero calmly lets him approach before engulfing his face in flames. Observing from his throne, the Dark Elf King lets out a derisive laugh. He calls Jay Hyun a fool and mocks him, asking if he truly believes he can triumph against such overwhelming numbers. Jay Hyun coolly asks why not, prompting the king to label him an arrogant and useless human. The insult strikes a nerve, as Jay Hyun remembers being called useless far too often growing up, and he is thoroughly sick of hearing it. Abruptly, the surrounding dark elves begin to gasp and choke, as our hero begins to radiate an intense heat, causing several of the elves to collapse. The astonished king demands to know why his soldiers are suddenly immobile and failing to attack, completely unaware that our boy is unleashing his chains of inferno, a skill far beyond what any ordinary magic academy teaches. As the soldiers struggle to move, Jay Hyun eliminates scores of them with his fiery chains, sarcastically thanking the king for giving him a chance to field test his new ability. Hundreds of dark elves are incinerated by the inferno's flames, and the enraged king roars, calling Jay Hyun a vile bastard. He swears that Jay Hyun will not leave this place alive, but our hero simply strolls toward him and calmly asks if he's being serious right now. The king is utterly convinced that it should be impossible for a mere human to possess such immense power, and it dawns on him that he cannot win. He then threatens Jay Hyun, claiming he will regret this day as he hides behind the might of his allies, informing him that the other 7 kings will surely annihilate him, even if he manages to strike him down here. While the king is still spewing threats, Jay Hyun activates his Step of Light skill, closing the distance in the blink of an eye and landing a solid punch on the king's face. The impact is accompanied by a fiery explosion that sends the monarch flying backward. At last, he tells him that what the other kings decide to do is none of his concern, and dares them to come find him if they have a problem. Back outside, Kel ruthlessly impales Hoyen through the chest. Ina can only watch in utter despair, feeling helpless because she couldn't do anything to protect her injured friend, all because she feels so weak. She's losing someone precious to her once again, and this time there's nothing but scraps left. Kel stalks over to her and seizes her by the throat, intending to devour her power. Eugene screams her name, but she can only weep in Kel's grasp, telling herself she cannot give up. All at once, a brilliant and overwhelming mana descends upon the area, and it is revealed to be the Guildmaster, who icily asks Kel if he is the one who hurt them. She warns him to think very carefully before he answers, because he will die if the answer is yes. Her oppressive aura blankets the entire vicinity, and Hoyen, who is bleeding out, feels a surge of relief that he managed to hold on until help finally arrived. Once more, Shang asks Kel if he harmed the people lying on the ground, and the crushing weight of her aura, a power she usually hides, causes beads of sweat to form on his brow. Kel instantly realizes that he could never hope to win against this woman. Judging by her immense mana, he decides his only chance is to take the kids from the Magic Academy hostage. He then boldly declares his intentions. He boasts that this gruesome scene is his masterpiece, to which Xiangan simply asks, "Is that right?" before unleashing her sacrificial skill. A wave of restorative energy heals them all simultaneously, at the cost of her own life force. Kel is stunned, shocked that she can wield such powerful healing magic with such incredible speed, leaving him to wonder what in the world is happening. Xiangan then coldly informs Kel that she has one simple rule: nobody lays a hand on her people. With that, she unleashes a raw torrent of energy, blasting him backward as the sheer force of the impact begins to disintegrate his very flesh, causing him to fade from existence. Yu Jung watches in utter awe, realizing that Xiangan hadn't used a formal skill on Kel at all. It was pure, concentrated mana, a feat that demonstrated the true power she hides. Xiangan immediately rushes to Sanjay's side to begin healing, and she's able to quickly stabilize his condition. The real problem, however, is Hoyen. She can tell at a glance that his state is critical, and as she attempts to mend his wounds, her system alerts her that his injuries are severe and will require a significant amount of time to fully heal. She deduces that he pushed his body far beyond its limits, completely wrecking his meridians and nervous system in the process. She realizes with a chill that if she had been even a moment later, he might never have been able to wield mana again. A short time later, she finally manages to finish healing him, but the system delivers a grim notification. The act has permanently cost her 2% of her total life force. The skill takes a heavy toll, and she acknowledges that without Jay Hyun's previous help, she would have been dead long ago. When Yu Jong inquires about Hoyen's condition, Xiangan explains that he'll recover but will likely remain unconscious for a few days. This news brings a wave of relief over the other students. With the immediate crisis handled, Xiangan asks where Jay Hyun is. They hesitate before revealing he went to the boss room, all by himself, but instead of the panic they expected, she calmly assures them he'll be perfectly fine, prompting Yu Jung to immediately protest. She argues that Jay Hyun went in alone, but Xiang is confident, explaining that he won't fall so easily, especially since Dark Elves primarily use magic to attack a specialty for any top-tier Magic Academy student. She knows full well they are no match for Jay Hyun's abilities. Meanwhile, our hero coolly tells the Dark Elf King that if the other kings are upset, they can come and find him themselves. But the king retorts that this will only happen if Jay Hyun manages to get out of there alive. Now bleeding from a gash on his face, the king curses, infuriated that he's losing to a mere human, and decides to cut his losses and make a run for it. He intends to warn his brothers, but as he flees, he's utterly shocked to find that Jay Hyun has already outpaced him, and is now blocking his path. With a flick of his wrist, lightning chains erupt, binding the king and slamming his face hard into the ground. Infuriated, the Dark Elf King snarls that he won't die alone. He'll drag Jay Hyun down to Helheim with him. With that threat, the king unleashes a secret technique passed down only through the royal Dark Elf lineage called Frozen Earth, fully expecting Jay Hyun to tremble in terror. Instead, Jay Hyun thanks him for the unexpected gift, leaving the king baffled as to why he's smiling. Our hero then activates his blank card, genuinely thanking the king for using the skill right here and now, admitting he never expected to get this opportunity. He swiftly registers the Frozen Earth skill onto the card and then employs his absolute calculation ability to completely dismantle the king's ultimate attack. The Elf King can only watch in disbelief as his powerful Frozen Earth technique simply crumbles into nothing. Jay Hyun then grabs his head, pulling it up to look him in the eye, and quotes the ancient saying, "Know thyself, and know thy enemy." Then, he incinerates the king's head with a burst of flame. The system immediately registers that he has successfully defeated Kanan, the Dark Elf King. As a result, he earns the prestigious title, Slayer of the Dark Elf King, and also obtains a valuable new ingredient, an item known as the King of Dark Elves' Essence and a piece of equipment called the King of Dark Elves' Pauldron. Having successfully cleared the second quest, he also acquired a blank card, a sealed magic text, and a new skill named Embodiment of Magical Artifact. He immediately rushes to aid the captured students, relieved to discover that at least one of them is still breathing. His relief turns to horror, however, as he sees that some have already perished, prompting him to use his sacrifice skill to save the one survivor. As he channels his power, Shangin joins him, lending her own energy as she remarks on the cruel reality of being a healer. Apparently, a healer is happiest when their skills are not needed, and second happiest when they manage to pull someone back from the very brink of death. Meanwhile, back on the city streets, C boils with an uncontrollable fury upon realizing his meticulously laid plans have been utterly foiled. He silently vows that it makes no difference if they manage to escape the dungeon, because he will ensure they all meet an agonizing end. Suddenly, Jay Hyun materializes beside his car window and shatters the glass, his hand seizing Psy's throat. With a truly unhinged look in his eyes, Jay Hyun calls him a son of a hornet for what he has done. Rewinding 1 hour, we see the survivors from the Dark Elf world emerging at the entrance of the Kane Guild. Sean expresses his gratitude to Song for her invaluable help, and she casually suggests they could visit her guild later if they're truly thankful. The offer leaves Yu Jung completely starstruck, wishing she could join on the spot. Jay Hyun, however, finds her reaction cringy and tells her to read the room better. In response, she lands a sharp kick to his calf, reminding him he's on a talking ban for the rest of the day after the massive scare he gave them. Jay Hyun winces, baffled by how much it stings, especially considering her strength stat is so low. Shortly after, Hana pulls up in a company van, explaining to the guildmaster that she rushed over because she'd been unreachable for hours. Sang-gun apologizes, promising to explain the full details of what transpired later. For now, she instructs Hana to take the injured and the kids from the Magic Academy back to the guild first. Jong-un stays behind, as she and Jay Hyun have some unfinished business. Hana then asks manager Sung-jae to accompany her, and Jay Hyun notices a tear in Sung-jae's sleeve, a detail that catches him by surprise. Just as he's about to speak up, Sung-jae discreetly communicates with him via telepathy, warning him not to mention it to his sister, as Hana's reaction would make things far worse. It's clear there's a complicated love-hate dynamic between these siblings, as Hana nearly leaves Sung-jae behind when he hesitates to get in the van, forcing him to scramble inside. Once they've departed, Jay Hyun and Seong-in finally ambush Seoki, who's been watching them from a hidden vantage point. He's utterly stunned that they escaped and can't comprehend what Seong-gan is doing here. Infuriated, he activates a powerful magical artifact given to him by Chairman Jin, a last resort for urgent situations. Using the artifact, he teleports directly behind Seong-gan and lunges with a blade, but she sidesteps his attack with contemptuous ease. She casually remarks that his teleportation item isn't particularly impressive, as its range is only a few dozen meters. She then demands to know why he targeted the students and who was pulling the strings, but Seoki merely scoffs at her question, stating that those mages are inferior beings anyway. He then activates another device, one that Seong-gan instantly recognizes as a mana suppressor, a tool which hides one's true power. To this, she simply tells him it's a shame. Meanwhile, Ji, who has been listening in, decides that Seoki has officially outlived his usefulness. Out on the streets, Seong-gan musters a powerful blast of mana, completely ignoring Seoki's suppression device, and taunts him, asking if he genuinely believes such a trinket could stop her. This triggers a realization for Jun. He couldn't sense the magic seal within the Kane Guild because Sei had used a similar device, a tool that cleverly hides one's magical presence. Seong-jin scoffs at the instructor, telling him she doesn't need a confession about who's pulling the strings. She declares with chilling certainty that she already knows it's Jin, adding that the device is a mere toy. She explains that any mana suppression device can be shattered by simply overwhelming it with enough power, and she promises him his life ends right here. In an instant, the entire atmosphere shifts as she summons crackling streaks of lightning from the heavens, which immediately engulf his body. Jay Hyun instantly recognizes the spell as Lightning Call, a formidable A-rank skill whose potency is dictated by the caster's strength. He's left stunned, realizing the level of power she's wielding is on an entirely different plane of existence. Sometime later, Ina arrives back at her lodge, her mind replaying the moment Jay Hyun protected her, intercepting the spear meant to end her life. She marvels at his ability to inversely calculate the spell's trajectory in such a short amount of time, a feat that proves she still has a long road ahead, but she makes a mental note to properly thank him when she gets the chance. Meanwhile, a media frenzy erupts as reporters swarm the Mill's Magic Academy, demanding a statement and an audience with Chairman Ja himself. Instructor Yizu approaches Ja, informing him that the Academy's reputation is in tatters, with rampant speculation that he was the mastermind who created the Ghost Guild in a twisted plot to abandon his own students. Hearing this, Ja seethes with uncontrollable rage, wondering how it all went so wrong. Yu, with a completely blank expression, reports that journalists are at the gates and calls are flooding in, asking for his orders. The enraged chairman barks at her to lock down the entire campus and inform everyone that they are not taking any interviews at this time. Once she's gone, Jian realizes that for such sensitive information to leak, there must be a traitor who hides among the staff at Mills. With Saki now presumed dead, he concludes that the only appropriate response is an eye for an eye. The chairman immediately makes a call, offering to pay any price necessary for a complete media cover-up of the incident. A few days pass, and Jay Hyun purposefully bumps into Hoen in the hallway, casually commenting that he's looking to be in good shape. Hoyen seems genuinely happy to see him, admitting he's only doing well thanks to him and the guildmaster. After a brief contemplative pause, Jay Hyun cuts to the chase, asking him why he was willing to throw his own life away. As Hoyen fumbles for an answer, Jay Hyun offers warm reassurance, telling him he just needs to keep pushing forward with that same determination. He urges him to act on his instincts and figure out the reasons later, but before departing, he reminds Hoyen to look after himself, because the others worry. For some reason, the simple idea of doing what he truly wants to do fills Hoyen with a newfound energy. Later that day, our protagonist reviews his stats, his eyes landing on his new A-rank title, Slayer of the Dark Elf King. The title grants him a significant boost to his mana and attack power when fighting dark-type monsters, but it also comes with a catch. It will trigger the fury of all dark elves, making him their primary target. Despite the risk, he equips the title without hesitation and decides to save the essence of the Dark Elf King as an ingredient for Zhang. He knows Zhang will love experimenting with a new material. On top of that, our boy also acquired a new active skill called Realization of Magical Artifact, a unique ability that allows him to conjure necessary armor in the heat of battle using only his mana, a skill that leaves even Jay utterly astonished. Hoon is so astounded that he equips it instantly, quickly realizing that the true value of this new skill isn't what it seems. Its worth doesn't lie in its rank, but in its sheer practicality, considering a single piece of C-rank armor fetches tens of millions of won on the black market. This means he could potentially craft armor of that immense value with every single attempt. Just then, the knife he was given, Misslin, starts to react. It glows intensely until a system notification informs our boy that Misslin's full power has been unlocked, now that he has met every last one of the conditions. This grants him a passive skill called Genius of Armor Making, and every piece of equipment he forges from now on will have its rank boosted by 1. This is absurdly good news for Hoon, and he now understands the true potential Misslin hides was dormant simply because he hadn't met the requirements before. With all these incredible new benefits at his disposal, he decides to dive straight into training. The very next morning, a buzz of activity fills the air as many students at the Miller's Magic Academy are seen frantically preparing for their midterms. These exams are so notoriously difficult. They've earned the nickname the student's grave due to the cutthroat competition. The tests cover both theory and practical skills, with a practical portion involving potion making and pocket plane dungeon raids, all broadcast live for the entire nation to witness. Meanwhile, Hoon is jolted awake by Yu Jung, who jokingly threatens to rough him up, and he sheepishly apologizes, admitting he tends to doze off whenever he cracks open a book. A frantic Yu Jung reminds him that they only have a few days left before midterms and sternly warns him against even thinking about getting a failing grade. Nearby, Ina is also visibly struggling with her textbook, and Hoon realizes that both he and she are terrible when it comes to theory, which is why he offered to tutor them in the first place. Eventually, the two of them just give up, ready to accept their fate of having to retake the exams, but Yu Jung snaps at them to stop talking nonsense and begins explaining the next subject on the list. A few days pass, and after the students complete one of their tests, a few of them are overheard discussing how it went, and they can't help but notice the top-tier students Ina, Yu Jung, and Jay Hyun chatting amongst themselves. The onlookers just assume that those geniuses probably aced the test with their eyes closed. But when Yu Jung asks Ina how she did, she suddenly draws a complete blank. Jay Hyun and Yu Jung immediately start teasing both Ina and Hoon, declaring that books are their natural enemies, which sends Ina chasing after them in a huff. Elsewhere, Soo Hyo glares at Jay Hyun from a distance, vowing to Im-soo that he'll crush that arrogant jerk this time for certain. But Im-soo just dismisses it as Soo Hyo going through his typical emo phase. A bit later, Yu Jung is in Jong's workshop attempting to brew a potion that promptly blows up right in her face. Naturally, Jay Hyun can't resist making fun of her, boasting that his own potion is far superior and trying to get Jang to back him up, but their instructor reluctantly declares that, at this rate, they're both destined to fail. He bluntly states that neither of them possesses any talent for alchemy, shattering their hopes into a million tiny pieces. Our boy realizes he desperately needs to train more if he wants to avoid a failing grade, so he asks Zhang if there's any possible way for them to pass. After giving it some serious thought, Jang suggests using a very special ingredient, a material harvested from creatures called moonlight fireflies. Apparently, they only live in the purest of environments, and not even 100 of them surface on the black market in an entire year. If they can manage to create a powder from their exoskeleton, it will be able to maximize the potion's effects. Shortly after this revelation, Jay Hyun and Yu Jung go to find Kwon Soil Sunai, one of the upperclassmen they defeated during the freshman hunt, to ask for her help. "It's been a while," she says, looking at them with surprise before asking why they're even here. Our protagonist tells her he'd like to ask for a favor, but she immediately tells him to get lost, making it clear she won't be doing anything for him. However, he presses, asking if she's really going to refuse without even hearing his offer, though she remains defiant, assuming all he can offer are some useless points. Our hero then offers her 30 million won in cash, an amount that shocks Yu Jung, while Soi's face lights up at the mere mention of that much money. Soon after, they make their way to a location called Jolabuk Doju near Mount Daeyu, and they bring Jang along for the ride. An hour prior, Soi had listened to their proposal and agreed it was feasible, but explained that even with her inspection skill, she still requires some kind of trace to find anything. When she asked if they had a plan for that, Jae Hyun confidently assured her he was bringing a very talented alchemist with them. She questioned who it could be, and Jung appeared, but she clearly didn't think much of Jong's reputation as a talented alchemist. Our hero asked if she knew him, so she replied that they were on the same team during their very first freshman hunt. Apparently, she wasn't even aware he practiced alchemy and had dismissed him as a good-for-nothing who was shoved into the martial arts class, especially since he was practically useless back then, unlike the other prodigies at their magic academy. As they trek through the wilderness, Soi remarks that Jong has a completely different aura about him now, looking like he's genuinely having fun, a comment that takes him by surprise. The moonlight fireflies they seek are nature's monsters, which appear perfectly normal in the real world. Jong leads them to an ideal spot where he claims they can easily find the fireflies, but Soi points out that it's getting incredibly difficult to see right in front of them from this vantage point. Nevertheless, Yu Jung notices that the growing darkness doesn't seem to affect Jung at all. So, our hero explains that Jung had told him he has a thing for bugs, a revelation that completely disgusts Yu Jung. After searching for a short while, their alchemist finally locates a trace of a moonlight firefly. With that, Soi leaps into action to find them. After activating her skill, Inspection, she discovers something she believes to be the moonlight fireflies. They quickly begin following the trail, but soon recognize that this isn't the path they came from, and they can't shake the feeling that it's getting rather creepy. However, Soi insists that her skill is guiding her here, to a place that hides something special. After making their way through the strange-looking vegetation for some time, they suddenly stumble upon a radiant waterfall surrounded by enchanting, swirling fireflies. Jong excitedly tells them that these are undoubtedly the moonlight fireflies, and it's obvious from their massive size compared to normal fireflies that they are indeed monsters. Due to their incredible speed, Jong activates his gravity skill to try and restrict their movements, but the magical insects appear to be withstanding the force of the pole. When Soi suggests that Jae Hyun just make his force stronger, he admits that he lacks the proficiency to alter the power of this particular skill. Young grows anxious that they'll lose the fireflies, but our protagonist confidently assures him they won't, and so, he generates a complete mana room to trap every last one of them. Soi is utterly stunned that our hero just created an entire mana room from nothing. In her shock, she declares he's a monster. Jong is amazed because he never would have imagined such a strategy, so he rushes in, but it's clear from Yu Jong's expression that she absolutely despises bugs. Regardless, Jae Hyun forces her inside, and they all enter to join Jong, who is already gathering the creatures. While catching the bugs, Soi finds herself wondering if there is any other student in the entire Magic Academy who can create a mana room like this, realizing even a third year at this Magic Academy would struggle with this. After they finish, they return to Jong's workshop to try crafting potions again. This time, it's a success, with no explosions in sight, which absolutely stuns Hoyan and Ina. Jae Sang proudly declares his hard work paid off, promising they can now expect a purity of at least 70% from their potions. Once they're done, Yu Jung and Jay Hyun start to celebrate. But Jang grows concerned that Jae Hyun's potion only reached 50% purity, and Yu Jong's hit a mere 47%. He can't help but wonder if they're truly prepared for the tests. A few days later, after their exam, Hong taunts Jun and Yu Jang, saying he almost mistook their cauldron for a monster summoning pot. He points out that even with the best ingredients, Yu Jong still only ranked 42nd, with Jae Hyun at 31st, Hong himself at 29th, and Ina dominating in first place. After rubbing it in a little more, Hoyan heads off to his next class, leaving Jae Hyun to mutter that it's not over yet, as plenty of exams still remain for him and Yu Jong. The only catch is that the practical exams are brutally difficult, combining everything from the freshman hunt, the AR test, and the mock dungeon. It's a culmination of every lesson they've learned so far, but another factor exponentially increases the challenge, one that is the very way their teams are formed. On the day of the practicals, Yu Jun laments her assigned cost of 14, knowing she'll have to plan meticulously just to assemble a competent team. This cost is calculated for each student based on the grades they currently hold. Students are required to form teams of 4 without exceeding a total team cost of 50. For this exam, Hoon has a cost of 17. Ina is at 15, and Yu Jung is sitting at 14. Jae Hyun recalls his cost of 6 from his past life. He remembers the excitement of joining a good team, but that feeling hides the memory of their disastrous results. He considers it a terrible system for team selection, as the higher-ranked students pick the lower-ranked ones simply because their own high costs make it easier to accommodate those with lower values. Suddenly, our protagonist is approached by a cadet he knows all too well from his previous life. This is the very same person who insulted him for being low rank, but in this timeline, he's asking if he's the genius student who snagged first place in the student hunt and also excelled in the mock dungeon. In the past, this guy had ridiculed him, telling him to know his place. Now, he cheerfully introduces himself as Chu Hansung, but Jay Hyun gives him the cold shoulder. Regardless, Hansung suggests they team up, arguing that his cost is low compared to his skill, and he offers to help Jay Hyun, whose staggering cost of 20 makes it tough for him to pick teammates. However, Jay Hyun sees this guy for what he is, a garbage opportunist who preys on the weak and kisses up to the strong. He tells Hansung it's a real shame he's not interested in teaming up and suggests he go look for someone else. Flustered, Hansung tries to reiterate that he has a low cost but high skills. But our hero cuts him off, saying it doesn't matter since he can clear the test by himself, and besides, Hansung is far too weak. Our protagonist then approaches his friends asking if they've thought about his idea, all while Hansung stares daggers at his back. The contempt is palpable. Meanwhile, the warriors Gina and Sungwoo tell Jay Hyun that they're in. Hansung recognizes Gina and Sungwoo as the ones who deserted Jay Hyun during the mock dungeon, but our hero simply tells them he's glad they agreed, because he was afraid they would refuse. Hanan continues to seethe with rage, furious that Jay Hyun chose those so-called failures from the Magic Academy, and storms off, utterly convinced that Jay Hyun will live to regret his decision. A short time later, Jay Hyun and his newly formed team gather at a cafe. Out of the blue, Gina asks Jay Hyun if he is absolutely certain he wants them, given how little help they were at the mock dungeon. And Sungwoo adds that they were left to die during the cane incident precisely because they were considered too unskilled. Nevertheless, our protagonist assures them with unwavering confidence that he has no intention of losing. Jay Hyun knows that Gina and Sunu's recruitment costs are deceptively low because they fled during the mock dungeon, and he understands their true potential hides behind that single moment of fear. He sees them, not Hanung, as the ones with real value. Convinced, the two agree to join and then ask who the final member of their team will be. Our hero tells them that she will be arriving shortly, and just a few moments later, Yu Jung walks through the cafe door. They both remember how Instructor Jian had to physically restrain Yu Jung from utterly destroying them for abandoning Jay Hyun in the dungeon. As she enters, the air grows thick with tension. She confronts Jay Hyun directly, demanding to know why he's roped her into teaming up with these particular cadets. Elsewhere, Chairman Jian is fuming over news reports stating that the Mills Academy is losing its title as Korea's top magic academy, and he's at risk of being driven out because of the recent incident. In a fit of rage, he smashes his computer. Those wretched reporters publish the articles anyway, even after he'd paid them a fortune to stay quiet. It's dawning on him that the media is abandoning him, the mighty giant, and it's painfully obvious that the Lotus Guild is the invisible hand behind this entire mess. He concludes that his only option is to lay low for the time being, accepting the inevitable losses. He hides from the public eye, waiting for the media storm to pass so he can return to his original plan concerning a seer. Back at the cafe, Yu Young sits with a defiant glare, sizing up the two warrior cadets. She reluctantly agrees to let it slide, but questions Jay Hyun if he's truly certain about his decision. Our protagonist then declares that they must trust him. Ordering them to flee was, realistically, the only viable option they had at the time. Faced with his conviction, Yu Jung has little choice but to concede. She then presses him for the real reason he wants them on his team, especially since he could easily achieve a perfect score on the test all by himself. The truth is, our hero chose them because they all share a deep-seated resentment towards Jian, and he's confident they'll keep whatever he's planning a closely guarded secret. He finally admits that he has a plan to orchestrate Jian's downfall during the event, leaving them all staring at him in utter disbelief. On the day of the practical exam, the students assemble as an instructor named Park Hajin steps forward to oversee the second part of the examinations. Our protagonist recognizes Hajin as one of Jian's lackeys, undoubtedly sent here to replace Seoki. Hajin announces that the entire exam will be broadcast live to the nation, showcasing the students' abilities to the world. Therefore, he urges them to perform at their absolute best and wishes them good luck. In a flash, the students are transported to a location known as the Pocket Plane, a dimension seemingly overflowing with molten lava. Our hero's squad is designated Team D, and their objective is to clear every stage and retrieve the final boss's core. The mission for the first floor is straightforward: eliminate all monsters and locate the staircase that leads to the second floor. The heat is oppressive, and Jay Hyun explains they are in a dungeon modeled after the legendary realm of Muspelheim. Our protagonist suggests their first move should be to map out the dungeon, as information is their greatest weapon. Yu Jung explains their need to gather as much information as possible to handle any situation, adding that there are also items he's keen on acquiring. She points out that one crucial item is frost grass, as prolonged exposure to this volcanic heat will inevitably slow them down and will also introduce other dangers. Sungwoo can't help but commend Jae Hun and Yu Jung, noting how proficient they seem to be. But our protagonist clarifies that it's just the fundamentals of dungeon exploration. Survival is the absolute priority for any raider from the Magic Academy. Shortly after, Jae Hun activates his mana detection skill, scanning the area until he pinpoints the signature of Frostgrass. Following the mana trail, they discover an entire field teeming with the valuable herb, so Jay Hyun suggests they gather as much as they can for their inventory. Recalling that Sun Woo mentioned having decent grades in alchemy, Jay Hyun entrusts him with the task of brewing the potions. Suddenly, a system notification alerts them that viewers will be entering the broadcast room shortly, reminding them to be mindful of their words and actions. The students are expected to put on a show for the entire nation, and their performance must satisfy the audience. While Jay Hyun dislikes the concept, he recognizes its potential strategic uses. As they continue picking the grass, he alerts the team that 4 C-rank monsters are closing in, and he gives the order to switch to Formation B. They immediately fall into position, just as several menacing lava slimes ooze towards them. Jung-woo instantly activates his provoke skill, drawing their aggression to himself, and Jay Hyun advises everyone to fight using items to maintain their distance, since the monsters will detonate if a specific spot on them is touched. They all ready their weapons but hold their ground, waiting as the creatures creep ever closer. When the slimes are just inches away, Yoo-joon nervously calls out to Jay Hyun, but he calmly tells her it's not time to strike yet. At that exact moment, their team's viewing channel goes live, and a flood of viewers pours in, with some of them immediately asking if this is the stream featuring the student who claimed first place in the freshman hunt. With perfect timing, Jay Hyun gives the command. His teammates spring into action. Yoo-joon unleashes her water shoot skill, firing an arrow that punches a clean hole through one of the monsters. As Gina joins the fray, Jay Hyun considers that this is the perfect environment to test out the frozen earth skill he recently acquired. So, he offers a confident smile to the camera and proceeds to activate a skill, one that cleverly hides his true trump cards for later. He has no intention of making things too thrilling this early on, planning to unveil his more powerful abilities when the stakes are higher. For now,